Yo, 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 what's up, y'all? You are listening to the Lazarus Affect podcast, and I am your host, Lazarus Ross. Let's grow. Let's go. Aww. What is up, y'all? We are back with another episode of the Lazarus Affect podcast, and this time I have one of my wonderful friends, one of my greatest teachers, my boy, David Staab of Maegical. What's up, David?
What's up? Great to be on here, man. I appreciate this. I absolutely doing this podcast. More people can hear your messages and feel that energy you got. So I appreciate being able to come on here and chat.
Yeah, absolutely. So for those of y'all who don't know, I'll just kind of introduce Dave a little bit. The first time I ever did what we call grandmother, aka ayahuasca, David facilitated me through that experience, him and his wife. And David and his wife hold retreats abroad and in Texas. They have a church here in Texas where you can come and you can go to an ayahuasca retreat and heal and expand and grow and create community. So I wanted to bring David on here so those of y'all who don't know him can get to know him and possibly go to one of his retreats if this medicine is calling you, and wanted him to share his story. So Dave, just share with the people a little bit of your journey and how did you get started in this space? What drew you into this healing world?
Yeah, appreciate it, man. You know, ayahuasca, man, where to even start? I want to start off by saying there's so much stigma. I'm not going to go into the whole spiritual warfare thing right now, but all the major systems, there's a lot of indoctrinated fear and all the stuff that they use to control people. And ayahuasca is such a sacred plant medicine. So there's a lot of initial fear around it. So my first thing is usually just come with a bit of an open mind about these things. My personal experience I was even introduced to is actually through my wife. She had severe levels of sexual, physical, and emotional abuse from like 7 years old to her mid-20s. What that created by the time she was in her mid-30s was 7 different diagnosed autoimmune diseases: lupus, Sjogren's, rheumatoid arthritis, Ehlers-Danlos. And she also had severe PTSD, insomnia. And then because when you have suppressed emotions and suppressed trauma, and I'm not saying some trauma is worth it, trauma is trauma, but sexual trauma is really deep. And the more it was suppressed, it kept creating all these diseases. So then she had like food intolerances, all kinds of stuff. And we tried everything. To make a real long story short, we tried everything. We went into crazy medical debt, tried all these doctors, you name it, Western medicine, Eastern medicine, and we were divinely guided to ayahuasca. I had no clue what it was. This was like, 7, 8 years ago. We were divinely guided to it, and I'll never forget the first time we experienced it. Now ayahuasca heals in layers, but in her first ceremony, it was this underground movement in Vermont. They weren't even like official church, like we are, because for the protection. But I trusted the people. I knew the people. I knew they were doing good work. So we went to Vermont, and in her they did 2 nights of ceremony there. She released so much suppressed trauma that right off the bat, a few of her autoimmune diseases healed like that. Lupus, gone. Rheumatoid arthritis, gone. So, it blew my mind to what I could understand was feasible. And watching the purging, the throwing up, like her go through this bawling that I've never seen her bawl like that. Like it was this beautiful divine healing experience. And then her symptoms, she still had a lot of healing to do, but to see like multiple diseases and the symptoms gone just like that, I was like, I don't know what this is, but I know this is what I'm dedicating my life to. My wife is like my world. And I just saw her have profound healing in a few nights. So I dove headfirst into it. I started learning about it. Really started growing my relationship with God, because God really guided me. And again, not to go into any kind of thing fear-based, but there are people that are working with medicines not with the best intentions. So you really have to discern who's working with the medicines. You have to discern the intention of the energy of the person working with them. So we were guided to some beautiful teachers. And again, real long story short, I ended up traveling to Colombia and doing lots of training out in Colombia, working with these teachers, learning about these medicines, multiple initiations in the Amazon jungle, and then starting to work with it myself. So as time went on, over the next few years, Megan ended up healing all of her autoimmune diseases, all her PTSD, her insomnia, her food, into all these things healed completely as time went on. And she continued to go deeper with the medicine. And while she was doing that, I was going deeper with my teachers, learning about the medicines, learning about the history of it, learning how to work with it. And then it eventually came to, it's funny too, because I felt a call the very first time I sat with ayahuasca. I was like, why is this familiar? I feel like I'm supposed to work with this. But I had so much self-doubt. I was like, I'm a country kid from Oklahoma, a white kid from Oklahoma. There is no way a white kid from Oklahoma is supposed to. So I had all this self-doubt. It wasn't until a couple years later that my indigenous teacher was like, you have a connection with this medicine, that I actually started to believe in myself. And then I started working with it and facilitating it, and this profound healing started happening. We founded the Church of Sacred Union. So we facilitate them now here in Texas. And we've worked with thousands of people, and just with seeing divine healing after divine healing. And we do them, like you said, internationally as well as here in Texas too.
Man, thank you. So I haven't listened to your podcast in a while, and I did not remember catching the part where Megan healed lupus and arthritis in the first go around. That's nuts. That's insane.
Yeah, the other ones, the other one, it was like these layers. So what ayahuasca, it's an intelligence. It knows what needs to go first. So we have people come in, they're like, I really need this healed. But then ayahuasca's like, no, I really need this over here healed first. So it heals in these different layers. So it took quite a few to get all of the things that needed to get got.
Right.
Right off the bat, lupus, it was gone. It was all related to suppressed sexual trauma.
Yeah, that's nuts. So Megan had her healing journey. You started working with the teachers, went deeper with the medicine. Now you're, when we want to say certified, but in the Amazon and in that world, that's basically what it is. A certified shaman, like a real actual shaman, because you've been to the Amazon, you trained numerous times. I know when we've been connected for almost 2.5 years now, and you were just getting started with facilitating at that point. Okay, and you just went to your first Amazon. And I wouldn't say retreat, but what is that called when you go down there with your teachers?
Yeah, you go down there and you go through a deep initiation process.
Initiation, okay. Yeah. So initiation, and the last few years, it's like y'all have retreats, what, every 2 weeks?
Every month. Every month we have a retreat. Yep.
One every month. So whether it's either here in Texas or somewhere in Colombia, or where's the other ones at? Mexico?
So we've done it in Mexico, Belize. We do Belize every year. That's one of our biggest ones.
That's the December one, the real big,
luxurious,
that's next level.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I remember recently you always share your journey and things that come up for you. But I remember recently you sharing that something happened, and you've done a lot of work. You've done this medicine a lot of times. So there's a lot of layers that have been removed and healed. But recently you were sharing a story. I don't believe it was Aya.
No.
I think you worked with LSD, and there was some stuff that came up for you that you had no clue was there.
Yep.
You mind sharing that so people can get like, hey, you're going to heal, and you got to be patient with yourself and give yourself grace as time goes on, because time doesn't heal all wounds. But if you stay in it and you continue to do the work, the layers will come up when the layers come up. But you have to be in it for the work to allow the layers to come up. It's just not a time thing.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I'm happy to go into that. I want to say one quick thing before.
Yep.
Just for anyone that does work with indigenous, I'm currently under a really beautiful apprenticeship. I've been serving for a while, but I got connected with this indigenous master that's really well known over there. They don't mind me saying his name. His teacher, it's more of a thing not to mention him, but his name's Taita Jaguar. So I'm officially under an apprenticeship with this incredible indigenous master that I'll be going every few months to continue to learn, which is an important piece if you're working with this medicine. But yeah, what you're talking about, man, I've been working and facilitating healing really effectively for years. And I have healed all this addiction stuff in the past, and I healed from all these different abandonment things. So I'm over here thinking my healing journey's fine. I'm good. I'm facilitating. But you know what? I got to give credit to Megan. She's always said there's something else there. And to be honest, I think it was a little layer, if I have to be really honest, maybe a little layer of arrogance. But I also just thought I was fine. I was like, I don't feel anything's coming up, so I don't know. But she was like, there's something else there, because what I didn't realize, well, let me go right to the experience. And this is why it's important to have an open mind when people listen to these things, because LSD in our personal experience has been a very special medicine for us. Megan and I fell in love on it. We still once a month, we'll come back to it, and we'll just for our own connection and intimacy, really important to know where you're getting it from. You need to have a quality source. But it's a beautiful set and setting, but it's such a beautiful medicine for us. Now, so I did not expect this, though, and this is why there's a very divine intelligence that's orchestrating all these things that's so far out of our control. Because, out of nowhere, I had this and this was me and Megan were having our connective day, took the LSD, and then all of a sudden I had... when you say bad, I don't like to use the term bad trip, because there really isn't one. It's these medicines trying to show you something uncomfortable.
That's resistance.
Yeah.
Bad trips are resistance. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly right. So I started going through this difficult process, and I wasn't sure what it was. Yeah. And to make a long story short, it brought me it was going back in time in my mind to a childhood experience where I was actually molested, and apparently I disassociated and blocked all this out because I don't remember any of it. I remember little random memories of a tool shed and my uncle, but I don't remember anything happening. That's all been in my head. I remember that. But apparently there was molestation and even rape, and I didn't even realize. It was so intense. I guess I blacked it out, and the LSD brought me back out of nowhere, dude. The intention wasn't healing. It was it just out of nowhere brought me all the way back. And Megan was asking me specific questions, and it was my unconscious that was answering things that happened. And it was a wild, wild experience. And then when I came out of it, I was shooken up. But once everything calmed down, I had this extra layer of peace that I never knew I didn't have. I guess I always had this really super subtle anxiety, super subtle tension, super subtle, not being fully comfortable, which led to wanting to use, I only use medicines in a really healthy way. But you can be at a full peace without any kind of substance at the same time. But there's this extra layer of peace that happened once I went back and processed that. So it was mind blowing. And that just happened. Did this happen I don't know, a month ago, maybe? 3 or 4 weeks ago? Wild.
Yeah. And I mean, from the outside looking in, as long as I've known you, it would be real difficult to be he's anxious.
Me too. No. It wasn't until after I processed it, I was like, oh, this is what peace feels like. Total peace. Yeah.
Okay. So what about alcohol? Let's talk about it.
Sure.
I know I've had my own journey with alcohol and different coping mechanisms. And I know you speak to alcohol a lot, and AA specifically. You had an experience with that. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So I want to mention too, with alcohol, especially because, man, everyone's journey is so unique. So I can only speak from my direct experience. So it's totally cool if it just doesn't jive with someone, or if someone finds something that works for them, 100% use whatever works for you. So yeah, I had massive addiction stuff, and that actually showed me that was the root. That was the root of all that addiction stuff, because I wasn't comfortable in my body after that. So that was the root of my addiction. Anyway, so alcohol was always a big thing for me early on, especially in the Marine Corps and especially at VMI and all this stuff. So alcohol was always this escape. And I tried, once I realized it was really detrimental, and was like tarnishing my relationships and all this in my early 20s. I tried everything. I did AA. I did outpatient rehab. I tried those stupid pills that make you take in the morning to make you throw up if you drink, like all these things they have you do, and nothing worked. AA, honestly, in my experience, made it worse for me because it's like this heavy focus on drinking. Like every time you go in, all everyone was talking about was drinking. That's like, so it never clicked with me because it's like, okay, your world is going to revolve around drinking. And then it's almost like a battle. And you know, it never clicked with me either. I did this thing, and it's, again, just in my experience, it's just so backwards, where I would change my phone cover every day from a 1 to a number 2 to a number 3 to a number 4 every day I was sober. But what it was doing was reminding me of drinking every day. So
Right.
I got to like 80 something and drank again because it was just lost. So it just didn't work. And it was actually LSD that really helped me. This was before ayahuasca. It was LSD really helped me go deep, because LSD in our experience is like ayahuasca for the mind. Ayahuasca is a very spiritual, energetic, like ancestral issues, unseen issues, all that. LSD is more for the mind. So it helped me rewire that. And I was able to heal from that. And I have an interesting story too. And again, this is really specific to my story. It doesn't have to jive with people. But years after I stopped drinking, I was with one of my teachers in Colombia, and we were going through these salt caverns, haven't drank for years, right? So I sit down with him, and there's this traditional Colombian drink. I forgot what it's called. It's I don't even know what it's called. It's some kind of traditional Colombian drink they serve in the salt caverns. He's like, here, would you like one? I'm like, no, I don't want anything. I'm good. And he's like, well, why not? And I was like, well, I've had issues with alcohol. I just don't drink. And he said, do you still have a problem? Do you still have a problem with alcohol? Have you healed that? And I was like, yeah, I've healed it. And he's like, so you're giving power to alcohol then? Here, have a drink. I was like, huh. So I did. I had a drink with him, and there was no effect. There was no drive to have another drink, no issue at all. But it was a special moment for me because I didn't drink after that. But I was like, huh. Like, it was a point where I could tell I really came full circle on a resolution with it, where I could have a drink with my teacher. That was this, like, there's just this Colombian traditional drink with him, and there was no issue with it. So it was like a way of me being like, no, I'm not giving that power. I'm not going to keep drinking, because drinking just doesn't, work for me in the world I'm in, and I don't really align with it, but it also doesn't have power over me. So that was an interesting moment.
Awesome. Yeah, I haven't heard you talk about that part, and that's really dope to hear. Coming from my perspective, someone who went 20, I started drinking. I got into drinking heavily for a long time, right? And I went through this phase where it's like, oh, I got to have a drink or smoke. Started smoking weed when I was 17, right? So weed was the escapism, drinking was escapism. But now, like both of them, it's rare, like extremely rare. My niece had a birthday party the other day at her grandma's house. My wife's older sister lives a couple of minutes away, and her husband's mom lives 5 minutes away. So they had a birthday party, and I can go over there, and I had a couple of drinks, and before I could not do that. It was like, oh, that bottle that I had a drink out of, I'm drinking that whole bottle. Y'all better go this way, right? Or smoking weed. I had to do it all the time, every day, all the time. Now it's like special occasion. If it's there, I might. And then sometimes I'm just like, I don't even care. Like, y'all go ahead. So I really feel what you're saying about the things not having power over you. Yeah. And to be able to still be around that. And I know maybe I've heard you say this before. I know I've heard other people say it before. This has been my experience. But real healing, you can see when healing happens, when you can go into the same situation, but your response is different.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. So, man.
Megan too, by the way, with the weed, that was her coping mechanism for years because of her trauma. It was smoking all the time, and now she has a very intentional relationship with it. So she has an intention, blesses it. She has a little weed on her altar. Like, it's still a special medicine for her, but it's much more intentional now. It's not to escape anything, and she even creates a ceremony out of it too. So she has a ceremony with breath work she does with people too, which is really beautiful.
Oh, she does breath work with cannabis? I've heard of this. I've never been a part of it before.
It's powerful.
Okay, cool. I did not know that. That's
Yeah,
awesome. Do y'all have that as part of your retreats?
we
Or
do. We do. She does a mushroom every other month. We do a mushroom retreat, which is 4 days. There's a mushroom ceremony for psilocybin mushroom ceremony for mindset reprogramming. The next day is a cannabis ceremony, which people's intuition just takes off when they do the cannabis while doing this breath work she takes them through. They really tap into these new ideas and creativity. But she does that retreat every other month. And we have a pretty unique church, but we're going to be doing a church event every month this year that's totally donation based or free for members. And I think 3 or 4 times this year that we're going to have an optional cannabis ceremony for people that want to experience it at the event.
Yeah, whole different.
Come to our church event. You have some cannabis and breath work.
This is a perfect segue into doctrinization of traditional organized religion. Ooh, touchy subject, but I know we both like to talk about it. So,
for sure,
this podcast, we talk about whatever we want. If it doesn't vibe with you, click off. Love you. Anyway. So, what was your experience? Did you grow up religious? You said country boy from Oklahoma, so it could be easily assumed that there was some sort of religion in there.
Yeah, you know what? My family, they were Catholics, but they never pushed anything on me. So I didn't have the indoctrination. Megan did big time. That was a tough one to work through.
Catholic?
Especially when plant medicines came up, man. Really big, because at the foundation of it is fear. Like one of the main ways in the spiritual warfare is they want to control people. One of the absolute most, in my opinion, the most powerful foundational unconscious way they use to control people is the creation of hell. They tell people at a young age, if you don't abide by these rules, listen to these things, think this way, don't think for yourself, then you're going to eternally torture. An unconditionally loving God, all knowing, all powerful, unconditionally loving, will create beings with a destiny to have eternal damnation because they don't follow a certain way, or they are thinking for themselves, or they're with purely innocent intention. So that foundation, they tell people that, and it creates all this fear. And that's the most powerful way to control people. You control people with fear. And hell is the number one most powerful way that has worked to control people. So in Megan's journey, it was a tough one for her to work through because her family is super indoctrinated, and she had all this healing from ayahuasca. And one of the main things the religions want to do is keep people away from these plant medicines because they open your eyes so much deeper, and they heal these ailments in divine ways. And they point you back to yourself for your own wisdom and, like, you know, a God that is within you as well as creating all of this. So yeah, it was a wild ride overcoming that indoctrination for sure.
Yeah, because ayahuasca can help you to see, at least my experience. You know, Jesus said, I and the Father are one. And generally, organized religion, you say that, you're blasphemous. But you do some plant medicine, or animal medicine or LSD that can quickly show you that you and the Father are one. And then your whole construct is blown up. And there's some more work to do, some integration for sure.
Yeah, it's like, the way I like to see it is, you see the ocean. We're all these beautiful waves. We're not the whole ocean, but we're all drops of water in the ocean. We're connected to something much greater than just us. I fully believe there is a greater intelligence that is very loving, orchestrated. I am not God. I don't believe that. No. I believe there's greater intelligence, but we're connected, just like drops of water are connected to the ocean, just like flames are connected to the central fire in that way.
Right. You can't be separate from it. The idea of being separate from it is
that's the key right there. You're not separate from God. Right.
Right. So, that leads into a lot of different things. Like, I know for me, I came into spirituality, and coming from organized religion, I was raised apostolic Pentecostal. You have to be baptized in Jesus' name, filled with the Holy Ghost, with the evidence of speaking in tongues to not go to hell. Like, all of that is it. If that wasn't there, you're going to hell. So my belief system growing up was that anybody, Buddhists were going to hell, Catholics were going to hell, any Christian sect, any religion that wasn't baptized in Jesus' name and doing that speaking in tongues thing, all of them were going to hell.
Wow.
That's how, yeah. And so I remember I got baptized when I was 8 years old. And then I got baptized again when I was 16. And I was at the altar all the time, like, I got to get saved. I got to speak, because I hadn't spoken tongues yet. And I was like, I'm still going to hell.
Oh my gosh, that's so tough on a child.
Bro.
Oh crap, man.
So I was like at the altar all the time, getting my hands laid on, praying. And like, I remember it happened one time, but then it wasn't like a constant thing. Like I saw all these other people at church constantly speaking in tongues, dancing around. I was like, I don't ever catch that to where I want to dance around like that.
Yeah.
And do that. Like I thought something was wrong with me because I wasn't catching that.
Ooh,
bruh, it was intense. Yeah. So it's interesting because after I started listening to things like Abraham Hicks and Esther Hicks, and like, man, this resonates, but it's not in alignment with what I'm doing. I'm going to church every week. You know, I'm tithing. So I was giving from a place of cheerfulness when I started making some money. Mm-hmm. And that was coming back to me because I thought I was being in integrity with what I believed. Now I see that's what it is, right? Mm-hmm. But when I started to listen to these other things and I started reading Osho, and man, I went to church in October 2014 with my wife. She was pregnant with our daughter, my son, and this other lady and her boyfriend. And I just, that day, the pastor said something and I was like, no, I'm done. Because it was just this deep projection of guilt and you're wrong just because you're human.
Wow.
And so I was like, nope, can't do it. I'm done. But I came into spirituality, I started doing the same sorts of things with myself with spirituality. I was trying to shame different parts of myself, even though I wasn't hurting myself or hurting other people. Like, for instance, the bodybuilding thing. I'm going to do a show this year.
No.
But a couple years ago, I threw the whole thing out because I was like, that's not spiritual. I wasn't in that, and it's, even though I'm doing a show now, I come to this place to see, I'm not doing a show because I need to prove against others. It's not about the other people. It's about what I can do for me, like what I'm capable of. So for this so long, I was shaming different aspects of myself, saying it's not spiritual. And that started with organized religion. Mm-hmm. So that's something to be aware of.
Wow. That's man, that's huge. There's a book. Have you ever heard of the Surrender Experiment?
Yep. I listened to it 3 times in the last 3 months. It was a huge, I was washing my wife's car while listening to that book one day on a Sunday. And it was like, boom. I wrote a post about it. I think you commented on it. And it just exploded. It was another level of heart opening. I was listening to that book and I don't remember exactly what it said, but it was like, you're trying to control every aspect of your life and you're not just surrender to what is. Like, be easy. Like, there's so much stuff that can flow for you. Just go with it. Like, be intentional about it, but stop trying to force yourself to change in so many different aspects because of these ideas that it has to be a different way. Like, it can be different, but it doesn't have to be because something is wrong with you. I was still doing that, even though I was doing it with myself. I was doing it in subtle ways with my wife. You know?
Yep. I feel you, man. You were talking about the bodybuilding not being spiritual. He had a medical practice management system, and he still he couldn't be more spiritual. So
Yeah.
it's every gifts or amazing things that are coming to you. It's all one. It's absolutely spiritual.
Yeah. And so that's an interesting, it was interesting reading that book and listening to that book and having that experience. What would you, before we jump into how people can get in touch with you, if they want to come to a retreat, how they get in contact with you, how they're able to do that, one or two things that you would want to leave people with, let's say this is the only time they ever hear you speak. What do you want to leave them with?
One, please know you can heal from anything. Don't let any doctor tell you otherwise. Don't let any person tell you otherwise. There is nothing you can't heal from. The healing journey, in my personal experience, is not forever. There's what I believe to be a bit of a toxic spiritual thing out there. We're like, you're healing forever. And I don't believe that. I think you're evolving forever. I think you're growing forever. You're consciously expanding forever. But if you got some sickness, you can heal it fully. You can heal it fully. You really can. So one, I want you to know that you can heal from anything. And two, continue to lean into being really patient and graceful and loving with yourself. We tend to be so freaking hard on ourselves, man. We really do. I can only speak from a man's perspective, but I know men especially are really hard on ourselves. There's like this innate, beautiful desire of protecting and taking care of things. And and it's beautiful. It's in there for a reason, but it gets difficult as pressure seeps in. So just a reminder to be loving with yourself, be patient with yourself, and there's a much greater intelligence that's there just making sure everything's flowing. So don't put too much pressure on yourself. Those two things.
Thank you, brother. Mm-hmm. So if somebody wants to get in contact with you, they want to come to a retreat, experience the medicine, get into the world, maybe become a member of the church, how do they do that?
So we have a pretty large social media following. Both Instagram is the best way at Maegical Heals. I'll send you some links for that. TikTok, we have a pretty massive following there at Maegical Heals also. On Facebook, I'm David Staab. Facebook and Instagram are both blue check verified accounts, so you'll just see the blue check by it. So you can message us. And Maegical is Maegical. So Maegical Heals. And then our website's maegical.com.
Make sure to drop those. And if y'all want to go to those links, follow David, see the website. Those links will be in the description of the podcast. And look, we'll most likely have another episode with Dave. Also have Dave and Megan come on at the same time and have a conversation.
Yeah, she'd love it.
For sure. Let her know I said what's up.
Okay.
Hello. And that's a wrap, y'all. Catch y'all on the next one. I appreciate you coming through and listening to the podcast. If you haven't already subscribed, please go ahead and do that. And if you know somebody else this podcast can help, share it with them. Let's go. Let's grow. Ahua.